What's up, YouTube? Shindig here, and day one of the MDI has elapsed, and I'm happy to announce we have in fact advanced to the second day. Now, just to kind of get you caught up to speed, if you're not familiar, the way the group stages work, right, we are in Group A, is that there are 6 total teams which have qualified from time trials. Over the course of this 3-day event, the bottom ranked team each day is eliminated, and the top 2 teams at the end of the tournament advance to the global finals. So for us, qualifying for this group as the second lowest ranking team, making it to the final days and the weekend was not a guarantee. So finishing the day 4th as we did, I think we're pretty proud of that. Now, unfortunately, I do want to kind of comment on this. Physical God Comp did have their tank lose power partway through the competition. I was actually looking forward to competing with them this tournament, so that's a really unfortunate way for them to go. But because they had the lowest total here, they are not making it to day 2 or the Saturday. And so we finished today with 21s across the board. We are tied with Polish Mountain in score, although we're quite slower on time tie breaks. And I figured it would be interesting, maybe for you, to kind of fill you in on some of the decision making that has happened today and sort of the preparation that we invested leading up to this tournament. So I think I can share this, but the way we can prepare as thoroughly as we do for the tournament is in large part due to knowing the dungeons we're getting ahead of time and the key levels we'll be getting them at. So we know exactly what we need to prepare for, which means we can specify that preparation. Okay, so that's one thing. Thing 2 is that I think this tournament is unique in the sense that, they might have done this before, although I don't know if they did it to quite this extent, but there are spec bans. So your most played specs at the end of each day get banned, right? Your 2 most played specs. And this is cumulative. So after day 1, our 2 most played specs get banned, which for us was Guardian Druid and Disc Priest. And then after day 2, the cumulative total of our most played specs on days 1 and 2 are banned. And so we are planning our keys and playing around that, right? Because if we just show up and play our main composition on every key day 1, then we'll be super powerful, but 2 of those specs are getting banned going to day 2, and then 2 more going into day 3, if we make it there, which would basically screw us over. Right, so we kind of have to do this juggling act of playing our alt classes and specs in the easier keys, but still being good enough and fast enough to meet specific breakpoints that we need to be efficient with our time, right? Because if playing our alts means that the 17th, for instance, is now a 2 chest instead of a 3 chest, well, that might mean we have to spend another key down the line pushing up this dungeon to make up for the lack of the 3 chests that we now no longer have. So these were things that we thought out, and we spent a lot of time practicing these lower keys with some of our alts, all kind of compositions in mind. And I can kind of speak to that a little bit here. I'll just play out this video so you guys can watch something in the background. But we basically decided that day 1, we want to get Guardian Druid and Priest banned, so they needed to be our 2 most played specs, which meant that we, across the 9 keys we did today, we knew for sure that we were going to play Guardian and Disc Priest in the 17 and 19 of every one of the keystones that we had today, which were Halls, Ecodome, and Streets. And so the rest of us had to either be below that total or match it. Matching is actually okay if you have a DPS spec that's matched with a tank or a healer spec. The tank or healer will always be priority banned first. I don't know why, but that's just the way the rules are. Right, so that meant, for instance, that Karm couldn't play his BM Hunter more than 6 times. I couldn't play my Havoc more than 6 times. Skilly couldn't play his Frost DK more than 6 times. So us being on these alt classes is intentional, and our specific class choices here are a combination of us believing that these DPS classes are good, / their comfort picks, right? Me on the sub-rogue, maybe I could play a spec that would do better in here. I think one of the things our group lacks right now, just to be fully transparent, is we don't really have an Ellie Shaman player, but Ellie's really good right now. So if I could play Ellie, I'd probably play that instead. But I don't, and I'm pretty good at sub-rogue, and sub-rogue I think does okay, or at least okay enough to guarantee us the thresholds that we're looking for, which for us today meant 2 chests in 17s and 2 chests in 19s across the board. There were a couple teams that managed to 3 chests in 17s, I think in Echo Dome and Halls. That was never something that we considered. Because for us, what that meant is that we would then have to 2 chest the 20 for that to be a meaningful gain, but we weren't confident that we could 2 chest any of the 20s. So we didn't bother trying to eke out additional time in the 17s in that regard. So for us, 17s were kind of a throwaway key that we could play all of our alt specs in. And the timer didn't really matter because we were going to 2 chest it assuredly. The 19s, however, were more important and a lot closer. And so for those 19 keys that we did, I can kind of take you here. If you look at this 19 halls, I conveniently on the exact same boss as the 17, you'll notice that all the DPS have swapped to their mains. Okay, Karm's on his BM Hunter, Skilly's playing Frosty K, I'm playing Havoc. And again, this is intentional because we wanted to guarantee the 19 2 chest, which we didn't think was guaranteed had we stayed on our alt specs. In fact, we didn't think it was possible at all. So we did the math ahead of time to make sure we could kind of play around this and all of us could play the different specs that we wanted to in the important keys while getting enough of our alts out of the way to enable mains in these specific keys without getting them banned. And that was kind of the plan for today. And I would say we executed that plan pretty good. Our goal coming out of today was to get 21s across the board, and we did manage to do that. If we had enough time at the end of the day, it would have been nice to get a 22 on the board. But I don't think it's the end of the world. And in our case, 21 halls was a pretty rough keystone. We had a pretty sloppy 21, which meant we missed the timer by like 5 seconds or something crazy. Which in the MDI is especially tragic because that is 32 minutes out of our day that we cannot get back. Those 32 minutes do not translate to a score increase or a timer decrease for us. So that just ends up being a big chunk of wasted time. And we actually bricked another halls after this, although this one was on the first boss, so a little less time expensive. But all in all, we spent over an hour in 21 halls. So this was a pretty major time sink for us. And after this point, we were playing catch up. But after this point, we actually played quite well. We dunked on every key after this point. You see us playing alts here in the 17. Again, we're not going for the 3 chest, so we can pretty much play whatever we want. Then for the 19, you see some of us swapping to mains. Actually, this time, Skilly and I swapped to our main specs, whereas Karm stayed MM, which, by the way, MM is still really solid. We hit the 2 chests for the 19 here. And this led to 21, which we did pretty cleanly, followed by these streets. Now, a funny story here with this break, I'll show you guys. So in the MDI, you're required to take a minimum of 20 minutes of break sometime between hours 1 and 4 of the competition, right? So you can't break within the first hour and you can't break within the last hour. Now, how you decide to take those 20 minutes of break is totally up to you. We chose to do 5 minutes after finishing our 21 halls, and then 15 minutes after finishing our 21 Ecodome. So this is the end of the 15-minute break here. Now, there was a bit of a miscommunication, and this caused some anxiety for us and some frustration, but it was our understanding that when our break time was up, the admins in our group would tell us we could zone into the dungeon, right? So our break just ended, 15 minutes have elapsed, we should be able to go in. But it was radio silent. We didn't hear a peep from them. And this went on for 2, maybe 3 minutes, until eventually they gave the go-ahead and we zoned in and started the dungeon. So this 15-minute break ended up being more like a 18-minute break or something. Which is, during a timed event is pretty stressful. Turns out, when the break timer elapses, you can just zone in, so we know for next time. But also, if you're wondering, who are these people? What are they? Well, admins are assigned to every one of the groups, and these are the guys that fly around invisible and give you if you're watching the Blizzard broadcast, the really cool POVs of each of the groups. These are the people that make it happen. So that was a bit of a stressful event, but we went to the streets. 17 went off without a hitch. The 19, so a little bit interesting here. Skilly swapped from Ret to Mage. Now, he played Ret in the 17 just as a comfort pick because he feels more comfortable on the Ret than he does the Mage. But on the 19, we thought that Mage's damage profile was very valuable. And we actually thought we needed the Mage to have the timer to beat the 2 chests. And this comp in this key, we have not done before. We have not timed a 19 streets with this comp. So this was a bit of a, like, a bit nerve-wracking for us, at least for me, because there was no guarantee that we could actually see the through and do it. It was just a theory that we had. But we put it all together, and with 4:34 left, starting the RP, we have plenty of time here to finish the boss. I think we finished with just over a minute left. Yeah, basically exactly a minute. So this led to 21 streets, where this key actually extended past the 5-hour mark. And so what that means is that any keys you start before 5 hours that go over the 5-hour limit, you are allowed to finish, but you cannot start a new run. So around the time we get to Miza's Oasis, this was basically, I mean, you can see the timer here in the top right of the screen, 4:57. Right around here, we are firmly locked in for this run. So we either time the key or we don't. And so from here on out, I know I played this key very safe. I just wanted to ensure that we got the timer on the board. And at this point, we just had 3 bosses to do, and we did have enough time to do them. So our street timer was like not at all fast, despite only having 1 death. But again, we have our MM Hunter and Skillion here playing, well, technically me as well, playing our alt specs. So we're missing mains. And as I mentioned, I played this key very conservatively. There was a lot of shenanigans that went off that required CC and stop coverage for that. I was kind of all hands on deck for. But we got it done. We got 21s up. And we look forward to tomorrow. So the plan for tomorrow, and you guys can watch and hold me accountable for how accurate this ends up being. But I think this is a good segue after talking about how I don't think timer is super important for us in the streets. Because, well, timer is obviously important for the competition, but we believe we can time the 22 streets. In fact, we can time 22s of all of these dungeons. And therefore, the timers we have in them currently will just be overridden by whatever hierarchy we manage to time tomorrow or on day 3. So that will be the goal for tomorrow, to push up the 2 new keys that we get, and then work on some of these 22 timers. Hopefully we can get, I would say it would be a successful day for us if we can fully push up the 2 new keys we'll get tomorrow, plus get 2 22s on the board. I think that would be a big W for us. I think that performance would probably be strong enough that we won't be eliminated at the end of the day, implying that we would be ranked at the bottom. And I think it would set us up decently well for day 3, potentially putting us in the conversation for maybe top 2 looking on to global finals. I'm not going to lie, I'll be realistic. I don't think we're catching Holy Method. These guys are kind of in a league of their own, but we'll do what we can. So, hope you guys enjoyed this recap. I'm going to go make some food, chill out for the rest of the day, and then get some sleep because we got to do it all over again tomorrow. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one, and GN.